Hello and welcome to Stop Hinkley's News Round Summary for June 2025. I'm Roy Pumphrey and here's a few snippets that I hope you'll find interesting. Well, let's start off at Hinkley C site where the Office for Nuclear Regulation, the ONR, has served an improvement notice on the developers of HPC because they found a component failure in one of the tower cranes. Now, just to remind you, there are 54 tower cranes at Hinkley, amongst a total of 140 cranes on the site. And although, fortunately, the crane operator found the checks doing his pre-use, found the crack during his pre-use checks, so there's been no damage or injury. It's quite a serious matter, and ONR are busy trying to make sure it doesn't happen again. Okay. Now the other thing that's happened up country that's to do with stuff is that the Guardian found that the Environment Agency has allowed the operators of Springfields, where all the nuclear fuel for warheads and the civil nuclear program is manufactured, had been allowed to dump tons of uranium into one of England's most protected sites, quite legally, but seems quite shocking that they've been able to do that. And it's been, if you like, officially sanctioned to do it. It's not often that, I got two Sellafield stories in a row. It's not often I use the Parliament, UK Parliament, as a source. So when the Public Accounts Committee warns that the retrieval of waste from aging buildings at Sellafield, the most hazardous nuclear site in the UK, is not happening quickly enough, we should pay attention because it also warns that the estimated £136 billion cost of the project, as they dismissively call it, would rise even further if work is delayed. Further delayed. Sorry. There's more than one delay going on here. So, and it also expresses skepticism as to whether or not recent signs of improvement in performance could represent another false dawn. Well, guess what? In my humble opinion, £136 billion will represent a considerable underestimate of how much Sizewell will cost, especially as time and inflation march on. Hinkley C has two units, two reactors being built. They were cock-a-hoop when they got the dome on the first reactor building the vessel on in December 2023, and they've been bragging constantly that Unit 2 is, well, scheduled to be 12 months behind, is bigger, better, faster, quicker, more efficient. We're doing it all so well. So you could have confidently expected that it wouldn't be a 12-month gap between the Unit 2 lid and the Unit 2 lid. It would be less. But in fact, here we are, over 18 months later, and still no sign of an actual placement, which of course requires activity from Big Carl. Oh, you get so bored with hearing that. And as a sort of morale booster, Hinkley C have produced a new video saying they're ready for the second nuclear reactor dome lift, and it will happen sometime this summer. So in other words, there could be several months to go. Questioning at meetings with Hinkley C people has revealed that they are remarkably calm about the increasing gap between Unit 1 and Unit 2 and are confident that they will be no more than 12 months behind at the end of the day. Well, I've yet to find a nuclear site build where delays are actually caught up on as work progresses. So, fantasy land, really. Here's a good story from that was from the West Somerset Free Press. I like quoting them, independent local newspaper. The Guardian reveals that plans for Sizewell C and other coastal sites, well, that's Hinkley C because it's certainly a coastal site here, They continue, even as existing sea defences become more vulnerable to storm surges. And The Guardian says there seems to be an inability among politicians to take in what scientists are telling us about the consequences of the climate crisis. And Sea level rise is locally and nationally is one of those issues they just try and turn a blind eye to. And the first weekend of June, at Sizewell, two things happened. There was what's called an outrage, which was a large protest about the imminent spending review, putting money towards Sizewell C, and it also had, sadly, but it did pay an excellent tribute to um, a an anti-nuclear campaigner and Greenpeace founder, Pete Wilkinson, who died in January. So it was quite a moving experience. Several Stop Hinkley people went to Sizewell for that event. The 10th of June was a busy day because Rolls-Royce won a competition to be the first company to try to build small modular reactors. This is skepticism from The Guardian, not from me, as part of a government effort to push Britain to the forefront of nuclear energy technology. And Rolls-Royce is the preferred bidder, although its small modular reactor is actually called by Rolls-Royce an advanced modular reactor because it's too big to fit into the small modular reactor category. It's actually as big as Hinkley A, so which wasn't regarded as small ever. The other point they make is that the what does it say? The that's right. The SMR approach is unproven, with no sites yet fully operational anywhere in the world. Throw some money at it. We're British. We can get it right first time. There we are. And the other good piece was that ITV's Robert Peston did a stinging piece about the economics of throwing a 14 billion handout to Sizewell C, in which, by the way, EDF, and it's supposedly it is their reactor and supposedly their project, only now have a 16% stake. Now, there's confidence for you. They've got their fingers burned with Hinkley C, and I think they're damned if they're going to have that happen again with Sizewell C. And Peston is quite stinging about the way the 14 billion pound is being treated, and says it means there's 14 billion pound less to invest in other projects, particularly for renewables, which is really bad news. Before the Sizewell announcement on the 11th of June, which was part of the spending review, ITV came to Somerset and interviewed a number of people about life around Hinkley C and how that might affect life around Sizewell. They interviewed an old worker who'd been at Hinkley A, and just happened to trip over him in a coffee shop. Of course, he was happy. The landlady of a good local pub in Bridgewater had, according to the reporter, mixed feelings about Hinkley A and the impact of the workers, although the clip they used, she was more positive. But the damning piece was they interviewed the lad that served the coffees, who was really hacked off that he and his partner just couldn't afford even a simple one bedroom rented flat because of the impact of Hinkley C workers on the local property market. As the number rises to 15,000, that can only be a more damning effect, especially as we know that Hinkley C workers are paid up to £1,400 a month for their accommodation and living expenses, which is colossally more than you need for a small rented accommodation, or in the past was a lot more than that. The interesting thing was that after Sizewell C had sort of been pushed through, the following day, the Telegraph found that an official was now releasing officially the news that the cost of Sizewell C has doubled from the 20 billion that they've been clinging to like a drowning man to a straw, and will in fact cost 40 billion and more. How convenient that that little piece of accurate news didn't appear until after the Chancellor had generously waved £14 billion at them. The Spectator was equally sceptical about what they call the Sizewell delusion, and the idea that Sizewell C will come quicker and cheaper because it will replicate Hinkley C while avoiding its mistakes is clearly nonsense. Right. Moving in more recent news, friends of Stop Hinkley were largely featured in the Sunday Mail in Scotland, talking about the fact that Labour's £14 billion fixation with new nuclear power won't cut the bills or help the climate. And Pete Roach, our man in the north, and at the University of Sussex have said that the amount of money they're throwing at Sizewell C is hopeless. It won't happen. It will cost far too much. It will take far too long, and it will result in a nuclear tax on consumer bills, which we know is going to happen, but the Chancellor was quite coy about that fact all through the spending review. And lastly, let's end on a bit of good news. The Telegraph announced in the middle of June that the electricity grid operators for Britain will attempt to keep the country's lights on without burning gas at all for the first time ever this summer. In a potential glimpse of the future power system, the National Energy System Operator, or NESO, the manager of the network, confirmed it was looking at potential opportunities for a short period of gas-free generation later this year. And if that happens, it would make Britain one of the few industrialised countries to have run its electricity system without burning gas domestically. So on that cheery note, I'll say cheerio for now, and hopefully I'll see you again next month. Goodbye.